Welcome to the story of Burn the Floor, the hot-blooded ballroom dance spectacular electrifying audiences all over the world. Our journey begins in London in 1997 and evolves over 10 years with the latest Burn the Floor theatrical production, Floorplay. Floorplay is the latest chapter of the global ballroom revolution, driven by the team who brought you the internationally acclaimed Burn the Floor, a creative collaboration of ballroom industry icons, a dynamic cast of adrenaline-fueled young dancers, and a distinguished Elton John party guest, all combining their love of everything that's no longer strictly ballroom into a 100-minute high-octane thrill ride packed with raw, youthful, rebellious energy with movement, sound, lighting, and color. While the 10 couples in this production are trained, professional and highly experienced ballroom dancers, what makes Burn the Floor different to traditional competition ballroom dancing? Who better to tell us than the creators and cast themselves?
When you see all these dancers in competition, they all kind of look the same and you can't tell them apart. And we wanted to try and research them right back to really give the audience the experience of how it was when these dancers first originated.
It's obviously more real and raw as far as costumes, as far as dance and movement.
It's a real pleasure to show our dance form sort of stripped back without all the sort of fluff and feathers and things that you might have in competition or previous performances, such as the original concept in Burn the Floor. We couldn't show just our art form in its raw beauty. Just the man and a woman together. Let's show what this art form is capable of. And it's a real privilege in Floorplay to be able to demonstrate that to the audience.
It's the things that we love about our art form shown to the rest of the world. So people are really getting an insight into our passion and why we're passionate for it.
It's much more dynamic. It's a ballroom show, but almost not quite strictly ballroom.
It's just ballroom dancing that you've never seen before.
It's a fantastic experience to have basically your second family on stage with you and just enjoying every single second of it.
It's warm and it's inviting and it's intimate, you know, and I think that's why people love it so much. They walk out with just this expression of wow on their face because no one expects to see what they see.
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, I'm not a dancer or anything like that. It was just absolutely unbelievable.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, that was a buzz, a hell of a buzz.
The choreography, haven't seen something like that in years. Wonderful.
As with any great story, Burn the Floor started with a vision. In this case, it was that of Australian producer Harley Metcalf, who was inspired by a group of young, energetic ballroom dancers at their performance at the 50th birthday party of none other than Sir Elton John in London in 1997.
I was absolutely blown away. It wasn't ballroom dancing as I expected or anyone would expect. It was young and vibrant and energetic. It really packed a punch. In fact, it wasn't just me. It was the whole room was transfixed. And after it was over, all I wanted to do was find out more about the dancers and how, as performers, they could create this amazing environment. Later on, I got to meet the dancers, and I discovered they all had this incredible quality. It was all based on an amazing work ethic, a love of tradition, and this absolute commitment to dance in their life. Back in '97, the original idea was to take those amazing qualities, combine them with fantastic costuming, choreography, music, theatre technology, presentation, give the whole genre a complete makeover, an absolute electronic jolt. I started a workshop in '98. I wanted to prove that this crazy vision that I had in my head, when you brought all these elements together, could actually work down the barrel of a camera. Once we got the pictures, it was just so obvious that it absolutely would work. That was really the birth of Burn the Floor. I'd heard about this couple, Jason Gilkes and Peter Roby, and they were described to me as, when this couple dance, they can make you cry. And it wasn't until I met them and actually saw them move across the floor that I realised this amazing quality. And my whole push was to get them out of retirement and into the show. With Jason and Peter, they'd retired from competitive dancing and moved home to Perth. I had to entice them to move halfway around the world, back to the UK, where they'd already spent the last 15 years. It was a big, big ask.
I remember a fax coming through asking us to go back to London, of all places.
We just shifted back to Australia.
Yeah, after being in London for 15 years, and said, there's this new show production called Burn the Floor, and would you be interested in coming out of retirement to dance in it? And I think we just read it and sort of screwed it up. And then 2 weeks later it came again, and then they were really being persistent in this. Mr. Harley Metcalf is going to produce this big dancing show, and it's going to be the best thing that's ever been for Ballroom. And sort of the second time we're like, oh, a bit more curious.
I'll inquire about it.
Then a lot of our students were actually going into the show. They said, we've actually signed to do the show. Then our agent rang us and said, get yourselves in this show. If it's just to meet Harley Metcalf, if it's just to be a part of this new phase of Ballroom, it seems to be, you know, such a huge production. And they said, it's just 6 weeks of your life. 7 years later, we're still with Burn the Floor. And
that's the first I've heard about Jason screwing up that fax. I can't even remember sending it. But the whole thing for me, I knew how important it was to get them to become the last of the 22 couples in the show. It was totally evident to me that Jason and Peter had the commitment to make this show work. Everyone adored them, followed them. So we were able to build on the initial ideas and make this thing a success.
Went from one thing to the other. Meeting Harley and meeting some of the people that were involved in Burn the Floor, was the whole thing snowballed from there. So that was a very important decision that I can't believe we turned down twice before we actually got on the plane and went back to London to do this.
We started touring in 1999. Our first major tour was in Australia. But right from the outset, I could recognise in Jason and Peter this unique quality. They were definitely leaders. They certainly stood out in terms of talent and ideas. And I found, as we went forward, Jason started coming to me with, what if we did this over here? Or what if we did that? And it really made sense. So I wanted to involve him more and more in building the show, coming up with the ideas that would take us to the level that we all wanted to be at. When we started, we were already a good show, but we needed to be great. And perhaps in my inimitable way, I was in too much of a hurry, pushing too hard, too quickly. Looking at what we achieved in '99, after the Australian tour, I sat down with Anthony Van Last, our original director and choreographer, and Jason, and we spoke about how we could develop the show. At the end of the meeting, I felt the way forward was to ask Anthony for his blessing for Jason to step up in his role as artistic director and work on all these ideas that have been flowing out of Jason's head in the previous few months. Literally, the whole thing was about me saying to Jason, mate, here's your chance. Let's get this bloody thing right.
I was like, okay, a big undertaking, but it was exactly what I wanted to do. And
yeah, that was really the beginning of the dream. And I guess, like throughout our career, Jason's always choreographed. And my dream was to see him be able to do this. And that was the beginning of this opportunity now.
Jason personifies those original qualities that got me going in '99. He is the real heart, the one with the inspiration that drove the show. He took us in '99, and with his passion, we began to slowly rebuild the show. Right through 2000, 2001, every 6 months we'd come up with new ideas, new pieces. Jason really drove that inspiration. Jason and Peter are absolute leaders in their field, not only on the competitive floor, but as teachers and mentors to a lot of the young dancers. You'll find in the company today that a number of these dancers worked with Jason from 8 years, 9 years old, learning the craft, seeking the inspiration and the sort of traditional form from Jason and Peter as dancers.
Jason and Pete have always been my idols, so it's so amazing to be able to work with them every day, and I mean, they give us so much information. I've learnt more doing the show than I ever did in my competing career, so it's been an amazing journey with them.
We've pretty much spent almost our entire career in some way connected to Jason and Peter. When we were competing on the international circuit in London, we often either stayed with them or had lessons or just really stayed in touch, and they kept us inspired through our competing career. They were also very instrumental in getting us interested in looking at Burn the Floor.
With Jason and Peter, you're getting so much experience and knowledge that they're passing through to you. Yeah. They're telling you all the things that they did wrong so that we don't have to make the mistakes. Watching Jason work, seeing his mind is like a genius, just to watch him choreograph and his ideas, and it's really amazing.
I grew up watching him, so when I first started dancing, he was kind of at the top of his game. I love his ideas, and when you respect their ideas and their vision and their artistry, it's very easy to work with him. It's just a pleasure.
Peter and I have been dancing for 33 years now. We started in 1974 together. I think it was 1974. And our parents were both professional dancers in my grandfather's studio. And so we were babies in the bassinet together at the dance studio, and so it was inevitable that we were the same age, and eventually got teamed together by the time we were 7 or 8. And then we've been together ever since.
We started early in the studio, just doing social dancing, going to the classes, and then Jason and I obviously teamed up. So we were lucky enough to start as juvenile, which is sort of an under 13-year age group. We went into adult, which is till 16, and then into what we call like an open amateur status.
We were quite bad at first. We were really bad, like come last in everything, and then we just kept at it, more or less. And
we
then
saw our first world championship, I think, in 1980. Came to Perth, of all places, and that was it. That was our inspiration, and we suddenly had a direction, and we changed in our dancing overnight.
I think us seeing a world championship definitely was the turning point for us wanting to become world champions. And then I don't think we weren't going to hear that, oh, but there's never been a world champion from outside Europe. So we decided, okay, if we have to go to Europe, we'll do that. And by the time we were 16 or 17, we were travelling over to London. And in our first tournament over there, we came 4th. And that was like a big jump onto the international scene. And no one had sort of done that sort of jump before. And then we decided, okay, we've got our foot in the door now. So we just kept pushing and pushing. And then by 1988, we had become world champions. It was kind of a tough next few years, but we got there, and then we sort of never looked back.
We came onto the scene being quite individual because we were sort of untapped to what people normally saw. We came from really like a country town, and we developed our own style and everything. So I think our instant success was on our diversity from the normal ballroom and Latin competitors.
Yeah, and I think once we were then in London, the competitive thing, we just got wrapped so much up in it, and that's all we wanted to do, and just make it to the top. And we just practiced for hours and hours, and eventually got there, and then turned professional, made our way up the professional ranks, and we finished when we were third in the professional ranks. And then so we had a really rewarding dance competitive career.
I guess once I'd lured Jason and Peter out of retirement, they discovered that they could live the dream. It's what we talk about, the Burn the Floor roller coaster. It's an incredible ride, and they became part of it right from the get-go, taking us on this amazing journey through all these countries, over 130 cities in the past few years. Incredible tours of Japan, Asia, USA, New Year's Eve in Monaco. It was full steam ahead, and Jason and Pete led the way. While we were touring in 2005, Jason and I took a little bit of time out early in that year, and we met in New York, a pretty inspirational city, and started talking about what could we do with the show. I wanted to know what Jason's sort of really deep-rooted desires were in staging of dance. What was the real direction in his heart he saw for the company? What came out was inspirational, really. He had some amazing, fresh ideas, how we could restage, re-choreograph, reformat what we've been doing for the previous 6 years.
We wanted to experiment with this project, and we finally got a 3-month period to do it. So we said, let's just get a workshop production happening in Perth that might only be a couple of weeks long. Threw it together, and from the first moment we started to put this show together, and Harley said, well, you know, let's make your own show. Let's see what you can produce if we were starting from scratch again.
This time we wanted to pace it, workshop it, find out what the audiences really liked, what the dancers loved to perform.
We've all worked before in Burn the Floor and stuff like that with Jason, and he's the choreographer, so he knows all our talents, and he's selected us individually for the different scenes and stuff like that, so he knows what we're capable of, which is, you know, a big plus with this, so we can actually go out there and shine ourselves.
Damien and I were actually lucky enough to be part of the original workshop, so our bits in the show were choreographed with us there at the time, you know, with our specific talents in mind. So, you know, Jason knew that we could do lifts and tricks and things like that, so that's exactly what he wanted us to do, so people could see that.
Jason could see what we're like as personal individuals and our relationship together. Therefore, I think he created the number in Pastorale where we perform the waltz in Floorplay, specifically around our personalities as a married couple or as a couple in love. I think it demonstrates what the waltz is really all about, sort of a mystical romance, and the beauty involved in such a beautiful relationship really helps the audience see what the waltz can really be about, and about those two people meeting, falling in love, and carry on the rest of their lives together. And then getting to contrast that sort of romantic beauty in the relationship with a number like the tango, using tracks such as Tanguera. It's really quite exciting, dramatic, and shows the other side of a relationship in the passionate side of things. So we're fortunate that we get that contrast to show different elements of our relationship on stage.
It was this workshop environment where we were thrown together in Perth for 4 weeks, and it was a real team effort. It wasn't just coming into a show, we were part of this show, so everyone feels like they have sort of an ownership.
The first workshops were run in Perth, which was Jason's hometown, so we branded it Jason Gilkison's Ballroom. And that was the beginning of the discovery of all the new work for the show. We went to London as Extreme Ballroom, trying another sort of different branding idea. But what had come out of the season in Perth was a review in the Australian newspaper, which described the show in its headline as hot-blooded floorplay. That word just jumped out as the perfect description of what we're trying to do. A little provocative, perhaps, but it really, I thought, encapsulated the whole idea of this new show. So once we got the confidence, we packaged that up with the Burn the Floor brand. And here we have Burn the Floor presents Floorplay.
From the beginning, we wanted to show ballroom dancing in a completely different light than it had ever been seen before. And I think Burn the Floor perhaps paved the way. They wanted to take it away from the competition, but it was still very, very theatrical. And we were looking for people who came to see the show to be involved with the excitement of the dance halls that were created in the 1930s and the 40s. We wanted to recreate that music and those environments, but with today's exciting young dancers with their attitudes, and the melting pot of all those things coming together. When we put it into a rehearsal room, was just so exciting. This seemed like a more organic way to show ballroom dancing. Well, I think the most difficult thing is trying to get that across to an audience, because every time you add lighting and costumes and sound and different things, it seems to water the ideas right back down again. And what we wanted to do was to put the dancers in fabrics that felt so great to move in, that they would nearly pick to go out in, rather than something that they normally feel like a costume that sits on them and doesn't move with them. We wanted the percussion to be so alive so that they could feel the vibration through the floor as if they're out at a club. We wanted the lighting to enhance all the atmospheres of being in a smoky bar, rather than just, you know, popping them out and just feeling bright. So all these things were trial and error for us to get it really right on stage, and having not just always a couple on stage, but having the entire cast around jamming with them and jamming with the percussion and feeling free to jump into the audience if they felt like they wanted to, and taking all the restriction of ballroom dancing off, and, you know, which normally always comes with competition, and just having the dancers feel free to sort of improvise where they wanted. All those things take a lot of rehearsal. That's the thing we did find, though. It's been exciting because 2 years ago, when this project started, all of a sudden we were in roles as producers rather than the artistic director and, you know, technical assistant. Suddenly Peter's managing the company, I'm producing, directing, you know, doing the choreography. I was, you know, we were wearing all these hats, but it was really exciting at the same time because it was finally ours. It was something that we had dreamed. And we had to go through the whole Burn the Floor process, the trial and error of all the things in the 7 years of being part of that exciting show, to get to Jason Gilkison's Ballroom, which was the first name, to Extreme Ballroom, to Floorplay, and here we are today.
We've had the luxury this time of being able to experiment with the ingredients of Floorplay. We still have that international mix, dancers from all around the world, but we've tried a lot of different things. The dancers going into the audience, where they entering from different and unexpected places. We started with a band and ended up with a percussion section. Testing the audience and the feel has been that luxury for us. We've got 2 singers in the show now who really open up and make the whole performance much more accessible. The pacing and the feel, the choice of music and the variety still has the original flavour of Burn the Floor, but it flows together a lot better. The scenes meld together, the transitions that have been developed make the show absolutely hum along. And we still have the samba, the salsa, the waltz, all of those traditional steps, but some of the pieces are unbelievable. We have Proud Mary in the show. This is a song that is from Jason and Peter's history. It's a song that they performed all the time in competition.
Proud Mary was always our last number that we always did, and we always, yeah, it was kind of a signature piece for us. And so we decided to copy the costume, everything about it, and use it as the finale of the show. So, and some of these things, it's just personal for us, really, that we wanted to do these things. But
I think a lot of the choices of music and things were things that we collected over our career, really, and some of them we never got the opportunity to use, and obviously some, like Proud Mary, we had the opportunity to exploit, really.
It's really weird because some of the kids in the show actually remember being juveniles, seeing us do that number, which is scary, and now we're teaching them our steps doing the same number, and it's incredible to see these wonderful dancers now doing that choreography, and how dances develop, because it's just kept going, and to see the technique that these people can bring to it now, it's just, oh, it's full on.
One of the great things for the dancers is the travel. We get to go to exotic places, see wonderful sights, play in historic venues. That whole aspect of touring life and this sort of Burn the Floor family life gives us a really fantastic spark.
When I'm travelling, doing what I love, getting paid for it, and having a fabulous time with great friends and, yeah, just a great team of people.
We have an enormous schedule. We have very early flights in the mornings, lots and lots of travel, lots of early morning calls for rehearsals. But at the end, it's all worthwhile. That moment that you set foot on stage every night, you feel the proudest person in the world. So it's all the hard work pays off every night.
It does pay off when you're able to visit different countries and actually see and feel and breathe their culture and learn so much about the different places that we do perform in. So, and also you do have time on your own, like to go shopping or really get into the city that we're in. So it's a great job.
One of the most amazing things is the amount of people I've managed to meet throughout the world who I now have as friends for life. So, and it's beautiful to stay in touch with all these people that you meet.
We doing what we love and get paid for that and see the world at the same time. So it's kind of a win-win situation.
In Asia, when we go over there, the crowds are insane, and you know we get mobbed in the audience every time we go in and do this. But they end up doing the moves with us when we go out into the audience, and it's crazy. It is so cool to see. They love it.
In Japan, it's a totally different world to any other place you can perform. The show's perceived as we're like pop stars almost. I remember walking out of the arena in Osaka, and the whole crowd was just standing outside waiting for us, and they'd be cheering and clapping, and girls would be coming up crying to you, asking for autographs and running up for hugs. So it's a totally different world. It's really crazy over there.
We finished the show one evening in Osaka, went to McDonald's after the show, and 45 minutes later, a group of girls came up crying in McDonald's in tears just because they could meet us. And for us, that's so, ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean,
one man stood in the rain for 2 hours
waiting for autographs
because we had to like an opening party or something, and he waited there for 2 hours just to get autographs from people, and it's like, oh gosh.
本当にステージの上だけで彼ら自身の中だけで完結してるんじゃなくて、彼らのショーっていうのは本当にステージから客席を巻き込む形のショーだと思います。で見てるお客さん自身もそのステージから放たれるパワーっていうのをすごく感じて、だからこそお客さん自身が立ち上がったり叫んだり盛り上がったりすることができるんだと思う。
When we first toured Japan in 2002, our partners put together a Shinto ceremony to bless the dancers and the success of the tour. It was a really moving, incredible moment with a Shinto priest, and we adopted a section of that which we now do every night before the dancers go out to perform. It's part of creating our own little piece of history and tradition. It's become very important to us.
And it gets us together as one. We get to do our last little, family gathering kind of thing, and do our little ritual and go on and have a great show.
Ready, girls?
Wardrobe's our biggest department and probably our biggest headache is the way I'd describe it. There's so much going on and so much that can go wrong. The wardrobe team have an enormous challenge, and every day they find something new or unexpected to meet them.
There's a lot that leads up to a show, getting it prepared. We're here, hours and hours before a show goes up. I've got a lot of staff that come in, lots of washing, ironing, repairing, constant things every night going wrong, beads losing beads and zips breaking and all of that sort of stuff. Shoe repairs, lots of shoe repairs. Probably the biggest challenge is the last change, all the girls getting into the Proud Mary costumes. Because they're saturated by the time they get in here and they're exhausted, and it's about 1.5 minutes to get them into 3 pieces of the costume, trying to get a bodysuit over their body, then the beads over that, all snapped into place and velcroed, and then that dress that's got to be velcroed onto them and they can rip that off. That's a bit of a challenge, so we're all relieved when they all get on time.
Backstage is just as hectic as being on stage. I mean, you run off, quickly get changed, and you have to be back on in a certain amount of time, and obviously we all have our own dresses, so they help us individually, but Lee's always there in case something goes wrong. There's always spare, like shoes, you know, bits and pieces, pins, you know, things don't always work, so she has to be there to pin things together, and she's always there to help us.
Lee's got an amazing calmness about her too.
Yeah, she's
the
not...
whole place can be falling apart around you.
Yeah. She's just...
And she's unaffected by it.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are just screaming, "Where's my shoes?" And
She's like, yeah, you're right.
she just finds them, gives them, okay, on stage, no worries.
Yeah. So being in quick change is it's just as tiring as being on stage sometimes, because you're all sweating, you're trying to change into your costume, and it's quite hectic.
The costumes in Floorplay range from traditional ballroom dancing costumes that you see in the beginning. They go right through to almost streetwear. The boys pretty much wear dance trousers all the way through, except at the end then they change into streetwear in their jeans and singlets and jackets like they're going out. There's a number in it, Harlem Nocturne, that's 1940s. It's sort of based around that, the Spanish Harlem section. We also have a lot of Latin costumes, the traditional Latin ballroom dancing that you see in competitions. The fringe dresses are made, you know, for the ballroom dancers. They love the way they move and the way they feel. Jason's designed them individually as well to suit their body and what sort of dance they do, because if they don't feel comfortable, they're not going to dance their best. So it's important to make them feel fantastic and make them feel like they look great out there and they're going to be able to move really well.
On the floors, your big numbers, your big dresses, sailor suits, a little tongue-in-cheek, you know. Whereas Floorplay, you could go home wearing any of the costumes or go out wearing any of the costumes, almost, you know. Yeah. It's not something you're embarrassed to have your friends come and watch you do. Yeah. So I think it's a more of a today.
Burn the Floor was embarrassing.
Burn the Floor wasn't embarrassing at all, but you know what? I'm a carpenter, and when my friends came to see me dance, I was in a sailor suit. So was this clown.
We've always had a great family ethic in the company. Everyone supporting each other, looking after each other. It's a personal problem, or it's a physical problem, or a problem related to the show. You've had Jason and Pete there almost like mum and dad, I think, with a lot of the younger dancers, caring for them, looking after them, keeping them happy, keeping them focused. A really great family.
Obviously coming from a long dancing background, I understand the needs of the cast. Obviously I'm stepping into a totally different role myself, and I am unconventional, I imagine, in a role of company manager. But my ideals are very much for the cast. I think we treat the cast as a family and really look after them as I would look after ourselves. And that I feel I know their needs and wants, and that's quite an easy role for me.
Peter's very sweet. Peter's like the mother on tour. Anytime you're injured or anytime something's wrong, she'd be there with an ice pack, with massages, everything. Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, that's a big deal. We know that if there's any problem where we want her to look at something, or like a costume or a piece of choreography, she's kind of always there to she's the middleman.
Interesting with the actual touring, we've got some of the kids we've brought on from like 16 years of age. You know, some of them are having their 21st birthdays with us, and I feel, you know, they've sort of grown up in our hands, and you know, we've sort of looked after them along the way.
It's quite a sweet thing too that a lot of our life is involved and has happened with our Burn the Floor family. In fact, most of the year we're with our cast members. So, so many of them have been with us when we were engaged, and then we've had all sorts of parties together, and other engagements have happened along the way. And there's even been a few people have left us now, but they've had little Burn the Floor babies, and it's really sweet.
I think Jason is more of a friend to everyone than a choreographer. He's one of like the team than the boss. No one actually looks at him as, I mean, he's a big boss, but no one actually really says, oh, that's Jason the boss. It's just Jace.
Well, we are a big family, and it's really hard for us not to feel like parents, because we feel so responsible for these kids that have just thrown their careers away of, you know, competitive dancing and then given their lives to us. I think Pete feels more like the mother, because I end up joining the kids half the time.
I have to rescue him then.
But it's a great experience. It is like a big travelling family, like a big partridge family thing.
The show's always been about the dancers. That's where I think I got lucky. I discovered this unique seam of talent with these wonderful qualities.
We had a steady stream of people who said this is exactly what we want to do, and they were a very high calibre of dancers. We've had some that have been with us right from the conception of Burn the Floor. Since 1999, Damon and Rebecca have been with us, and some who have just joined us, you know, a couple of weeks ago. We're very lucky that when we put this show together, we have a cast of dancers that don't stick to a rehearsal time, that don't watch the clock, that don't think about what they're being paid. They just want to dance until they drop. They're so passionate about this whole project of bringing ballroom dancing to the outside public and what we're trying to do. And we're so lucky to have this team of people, not just on stage, but actually off stage, that believe so much that, you know, to do a 15-hour rehearsal, they just, let's do it, let's get it done. And that's inspiring for us to work with these unbelievably talented kids. Well, they're our kids. You know, it's just every day you jump out of bed to want to come to work with these people, because it's just so exciting and, you know, invigorating to be around. This show has been a lifelong dream to finally get up and going, and to see all the elements come together now. It's just, it's unrealistic, actually. It's very surreal to sit and watch what's always, you better finish, actually.
I don't think I can now.
And the combination of people that I get to work with, we've created, oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm not much better.
But to see this up with legs now, and after such a long career, and finally getting this thing exactly how I wanted it, and being able to sit in the audience and think, oh my God, that those dancers are doing everything you know, it's one thing to make up choreography, but when you see people make it look better than it did in your head, you know, that's just, you know, that's a very rewarding experience.
Everybody knows when it's time to hang up the shoes, but we've still got the fire.
Oh yeah.
We still need to do this. There's a few continents we haven't visited yet, you know. And I think Floorplay will take us there.
We've been around the world. I've seen many dancers and studied many different styles of dancing. And I mean, I can honestly say that it's a pleasure to dance with the people that I'm dancing with on stage.
We're having a ball on stage. What you see, it looks like fun, that's real. You know, we are having so much fun.
For me personally, it's obviously ballroom dancing is a pretty unique dance sport where we have two people dancing as one. That's what separates us from most dance shows. So being able to do that, and then obviously at the end of the show we've done everything and we come to the final bow and you get the crowd's appreciation. To me, that's the most rewarding thing of all.
Fabulous. Oh, my hands are sore from clapping.
There are no words to describe it. It's a real treat.
Oh, it was amazing.
I loved it. Oh, the show was absolutely fantastic.
I loved it. They were awesome.
It was just superb, absolutely fantastic.
Exhilarating. Oh my God.
I sat in the theatre the other night and I heard this couple behind me, and the boyfriend or the husband said, "Wake me up when it's time to go." He wasn't a ballroom dancing fan, that's for sure. But within 15 or 20 minutes of the show, he was whooping and hollering. This show changes your perception. It dusts all those cobwebs away. It's an amazing experience.
I think when we all started Burn the Floor 7 years ago, the title used to be A Breathtaking Journey. And with the formation of this new show, Floorplay, it feels like we really are embarking on a breathtaking journey.